Okay, guys, I just wanted to draw out for you and illustrate the purpose of the mind. And once we come to an awareness of this mind that we do have, we then come to awareness of how it keeps us caught in our comfort zones, really, and how it has a good intent, but sometimes if we listen to it too much, it can actually get in our way of achieving what we want in life. So, first thing to be aware of is that you are not your mind, okay? The mind is a part of you, all right? So just as your hands are a part of you, your feet are a part of you, your heart is a part of you, your lungs are a part of you, your kidneys are a part of you, your mind is also a part of you. So you are not your mind is a part of you. And the interesting thing about the mind is that the mind runs a default mechanism. So the way that we can look at the mind is that the brain is the hardware and the mind is the software. Okay, so just like looking at, say, a phone, the actual hard casing of the phone is the hardware, and then when we look at what runs the phone is the actual software. Now, with all software, there's a default mechanism that the software runs. And so when we look at the mind is running a default mechanism or default software, and the purpose of that is twofold. One is for safety, and the other one is survival. Now, it's interesting that safety and survival actually keep us alive, okay? So what we have is a threat-based mind. And that threat-based mind basically keeps us alive. So you're constantly, your mind is constantly searching your internal environment and your external environment for threat. And once it perceives threat, it will then alert you, and then it will come up with stories, and it will tell you different bits and pieces to try and then keep you inside your comfort zone. So the way it works is that any information that comes our way, and that's through our internal environment and our external environment, actually goes straight away to fear-based perspective. Now that sort of makes sense because the fear-based perspective is based on the threat-based mind in keeping us safe. So its number one priority is to look for fear. So for us to think of anything else other than fear, like a hope-based perspective, which is really gratitude and appreciation, we need to actually be consciously aware of that. So we need to drive that like if we were driving a manual car. Because when we look at the fear-based perspective, it's on automatic, and that's the way that we run it normally. So for us to think of anything other than fear-based, we need to manually, consciously be aware of shifting energy into that space. And that's that gratitude and appreciation. Now, the interesting thing that research has shown is that for us to have just a pretty normal day compared to, say, a great day, compared to, say, a unhappy day or a not so good day, we actually have to have 3 hope-based experiences compared to 1 fear-based experience just to have a normal day. If we want to have a happy day, we have to have at least 5 to 1. And if we are running anything less than that, there is then the potential that we will have a not so good day. So even if you ran 5 to 2 or maybe 5 to 3 negative or fear-based experiences throughout the day, you would have a pretty crappy day. And it's interesting that that's just because we are wired that way. So something to be really mindful of and place attention on. So now, when we look at the fear-based mechanism of the mind and the default mechanism there, we look at a thing called our comfort zone. So good old comfort zone. Now this is an interesting space because it doesn't necessarily mean that things are comfortable. What the comfort zone suggests and what it does indicate is it's a space of known. Okay, and outside of this space of known is a space of unknown. Sort of makes sense. We naturally have a fear of the unknown, and that manifests in a particular way in this beautiful thing called anxiety. Okay, so we don't necessarily have a great relationship with anxiety, and most of the time we try to get away from anxiety. We avoid it, we blame ourselves, we blame others, and we try and get away from it as much as we can. Now, the other thing that I find interesting that sits outside of the known or in the unknown are these beautiful things called opportunity growth, development, evolution, challenge, and this lovely thing called achievement. Now there's also some beautiful other things out there. There's a lovely thing called mystery. Okay. Now it's interesting that anxiety actually sits in the same space that opportunity, growth, development, evolution, challenge, achievement, and mystery sit too. So it's about being aware that when we experience anxiety, we are actually in the right space for growth and change. Okay. So if you then realize that when I do change, or if I expect myself to change or move outside of that space, I will have to expect anxiety to join me on that ride, because that's the only way it will be there. So anxiety is actually letting you know that you are in the right space. That's really interesting. So when we're looking at this, is that comfort zone is the space of known. Now comfort zone is also, another way of explaining it is how much discomfort can I tolerate before I then move to need to shift. Okay, so the comfort zone is a space of known. Anything outside of that, fear of the unknown, is going to create anxiety. However, anxiety actually has all of the other areas that are really positive and moving us towards change and allowing us to create, a greater life, a better understanding of life as well too. Okay, so just be aware of that you have a fear-based mind. It is made to, well, the default mechanism is to keep you safe and to keep you alive. Once you step outside of that comfort zone, your mind will perceive threat. When it perceives threat, it will then come up with stories, it'll come up with memories, visions, smells, a whole heap of information to then try to bring you back into your comfort zone. Okay? And if it can do that, then it has done its job. And it can pat itself on the back and go, that was lucky, nearly got away from us. Okay, but we know that if we want to change, that we need to exist outside of our comfort zone. So it's just about being aware of how the mind will try to keep you safe. It has a good intent. It's not a bad mind. It has a good intent, and it just wants to keep you inside your comfort zone. Okay, so just be aware of that each time. That's pretty much Mind 101. And if the only thing that you take away from all of the sessions that you're doing with me is this will save you in a lot of areas, okay? Because there are other things that exist outside of your comfort zone that usually hold us back. And we'll go through those in upcoming sessions. So, hope that makes sense. And if there's any questions, just put them down below and or PM me and we can then discuss them. Great. Thanks, guys.